with you. When you talk about, some of you did say, if we're asked so often, if the emergency powers were rescinded, what you would do. What would you do? Can you discuss some of those details? What would be your first action?
Well, I think for me, the biggest thing with rescinding the powers is it prevents the governor from simply overriding every law on the books, including local laws that were passed by communities in my district. And under the current order, the broad powers that were passed, he can supersede or override all those laws. So I think part of it, to me, is reestablishing that you can't do that. One person cannot, with the stroke of a pen, just override local laws that were passed by those communities, laws that were passed by this body. You want to change that law? Come back and tell us why. We understand, we're all smart people. Well, you know, we'll get it. We all want to save people. We all want to protect people. But we can protect lives and livelihoods, and I think that's really my anger, or my focus, is it reestablishes a barometer by which laws can be circumvented, and it forces the governor to govern like he should. And by the way, several other states have done just that during this pandemic. You haven't seen, the Congress hasn't gone home, the U.S. Senate hasn't gone home. My God, there would have been anarchy in the streets if that had happened a year ago. But that didn't happen. They showed up, they did their job.
Yeah, great points, Leader Ort. I would say, you know, we're calling for the complete repeal of the powers we gave him back in March. Those powers are the proactive ability for the governor to actually legislate. He can still suspend laws. He's always had the power to do that during this pandemic. We're not calling for him to do that. We're calling he can't actively legislate, and if he wants to legislate, he has to do the co-equal branch of government and come back and get our input on it. So that's simple. We're looking at this proactively going forward. We think he made a lot of mistakes in the past. Presumably, if we take away his executive powers, he has to renew those things every 30 days. He wouldn't be able to do it without the legislator's voice being heard.
Is this Senator Biaggi's bill you guys are introducing, or is it just a similar bill? And what are your guys' thoughts on these nursing home reform bills that are going to get moved today in the Senate? And are you guys worried at all that there's not a lot of motion on them in the Assembly?
So it is her bill. It is the text of her bill, which we will introduce as a hostile amendment today. So it's the same. You know, I don't know if her name will be on the top of the hostile, but it's her bill, word for word, which is, you know, pretty much identical to Senator Helming's bill. It says we're rescinding the governor's powers, rescinding the order of last March, and going back to the normal relationship between the legislature and the executive. There's no special commission. There's no rubber stamp group of people composed of one party. None of this window dressing political cover. It just rescinds the governor's powers and reestablishes the legislature. As far as the nursing home bills, we're going to be conferencing those this afternoon. Look, I think anything that makes our nursing homes better facilities is a good thing. Anything that protects the people who live there and the people who work there is a good thing. I don't know, it's sort of ironic, one of the bills calls for data to be provided when we know that's exactly why we're here, because data wasn't provided by the executive. So we're relying on the benevolence of the governor when he's shown a total willfulness to hide and keep information from this body. So I just, when I see bills like that, it makes me question just how effective these bills will be and how serious some of my colleagues are. But I'm happy to entertain anything that makes these facilities better places for the residents and for the people who work there.
Yeah, I would just add a few things. First of all, as far as the hostile amendment in the Assembly, it would be Ron Kim who said he is also introducing the Biaggi bill. However, we have not seen that bill text, so we don't know. But we do have our members, I think Dave DiPietro from Western New York has that same bill, so that's what we would be putting forward. As far as the legislation on nursing homes, I agree with Leader Ort. I think everything has to be on the table. The one thing, though, I would point out, we've been calling for the majority to have hearings on the nursing home tragedy that we have. And for some reason, if we had a clearer picture, we might be able to understand what legislation would be best to prevent these types of tragedies from happening going forward. So I still urge the majorities, whether it's the Health Committee, whether it's the Government Oversight Committee, whether it's the Aging Committee, use your subpoena power. Get out there. Let's have some hearings. Let's find out from the Commissioner of Health what went wrong here. I mean, we have suspicions of what went wrong, but there's nothing like a good hearing to get people on their oath to really find out. And then we can craft really good, well-reasoned legislation to try to prevent the tragedy in the future.
Two of you have both called for like impeachment, a whole host of things. Has the governor called either of you guys, and have you received a threatening call? And this goes for like any of the lawmakers here today. Has the governor or anyone that works for him reached out at all?
I have not heard from the governor or his staff. I know he referenced me in one of his news conferences, which flattered me. But as far as a reach out directly, no. I will tell you, everyone up here knows a story or knows someone who has gotten a call. Nobody was surprised by Assemblyman Kim's story, least of all me. But all I can tell you is I haven't gotten one of those calls, and I'll just let him or anyone else know. The only person that I've ever been scared to talk to on the phone is my wife. So.
Well, if Leader and Ord and myself continue to do this, maybe we will get a call at some point, but no calls so far.
So back to the nursing home bills that are going to be on the floor today. Do you expect that some Republicans will vote in support of them? It won't be some kind of party line vote against them?
No, I don't anticipate that. I mean, we'll discuss the bills. We'll conference them. I think, we try to look at all these bills and look at the substance and the merit. I'm sure some people will think they don't go far enough. But, I don't know that the bills are harmful. The only bill that I thought was interesting was there's a bill by Senator Rivera that actually it codifies, I guess you could call it, one of the 30-day amendments that the governor just put out, which I thought was interesting because that seems to be more in lockstep or maybe coordination there as to passing that bill, as opposed to taking the Attorney General's report and crafting our own package. But I'll just say this, Karen. One of the reasons we've called for the investigations and called for the data, and I want to reference the Empire Center just recently did a report that said the March 25th order absolutely played a role in the deaths and when they occurred and how they occurred. That's important because when we're crafting legislation, how can you put forward effective policy that makes things better if you don't know where the problems were? So this isn't just, this was never just about pointing a finger. This was about how can we effectively do our jobs, which is to legislate, to make laws. How can we do that job on behalf of the people we represent and the people who died if we don't know how it happened, what happened, so that we can make sure it doesn't happen again? Because if we don't do that, then those people who died, we're doing a great disservice to their memory and their families.
I've heard many of you say in the past week that you'd like to sign on as co-sponsors to the Biaggi and Kim bill. Are they going to let you do this, or is this going to be one of the typical Albany bills where the minority party joined them in that?
So in the Senate, I think it's different rules than in the Assembly. I don't know that, but our conference wholeheartedly supports Senator Biaggi's bill, and we'll be co-sponsors. In fact, if that's not already done, it will be done. So we voted for basically her bill 14 times. It's just the name on it wasn't Biaggi, it was Helming. Yeah. But they're both.
But this isn't about politics.
No. This isn't about politics. But I'll tell you what, a good bill is a good bill, and the right thing is the right thing. And so I know our conference will be supporting that bill today.
Yeah, I don't know if, first of all, we haven't seen the bill from Ron Kim, so that would be hard for us to sign on to it. But we publicly said that we support if it's the straight repeal of the governor's executive powers, and we would support that. And regardless of whether we can sign on or not, as we said, we're going to do a hostile. I suspect everybody in our conference is going to be supporting that hostile.
Can I just ask on the governor's emergency powers? So over the past year, the majorities have refused to subpoena the governor's administration. They have refused to curtail his emergency powers. What makes you think that if you hand them the reins, that they're going to effectively manage this going on?
It's a fair question, right? I think I'm looking at this in piecemeal. This is the right thing to do. When my constituents call me about all these executive orders, and all I can tell them is, I'll call the governor or send him a letter or watch the press conference tomorrow. That is not what I was elected to do. Nor were the members of the majority, right? I mean, so I think that's the first step. But your question raises a great point. You know, all you heard about after the elections was the supermajorities. You can pass this by a simple majority. You don't need a supermajority to pass this legislation today. They haven't done anything. You know, that doesn't do you any good if they're not willing to stand up to the executive. The strongest political will since I've been in Albany has been the governor. It's time the legislature find its political will of its own. We hope today is that day.
Agreed, and frankly, I don't know if we can do much worse. I mean, I ran through what the COVID deaths were in New York State. They're not good. It's tragic, really. And so the one thing I would say that we strongly oppose, and I assume the Senate minority opposes, is some sort of commission where you're just transferring the executive power to the legislative leaders, and that would still cut out the rank and file members. And we strongly feel that's why we want just a straight repeal of the governor's executive powers. Everybody ought to have a voice in that, and we make our case just like we do on any piece of legislation.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.